Welcome to the city of San Salvador, a city of just less than 300,000 people, but it is one of the most developed and one of the most modern cities here in Central America. This is a city with so much history that only recently recovered from the scars of a civil war just a couple of decades ago. But today it remains one of the most interesting cities in Central America. And even though most people don't actually come to the city and instead go to the beaches of El Salvador, San Salvador actually still has a lot to offer. So today we're going to go ahead and explore the city. It has a reputation of being dangerous. It has a reputation of gang violence and guns and all of that. But I'm still confident that this is going to be a beautiful city, and I'm going to share it all with you guys in today's video. So let's go ahead and get started with visiting San Salvador. Now, first off, something really important to note about El Salvador is that the national currency of this country is the US dollar. So they don't have a local currency. Wherever you go, whether it's street food or supermarket, you're paying in US dollar. Now, you might think that that's really expensive then, because if they're charging in US dollar, they're probably going to be prices similar to the United States. But that's not true. You can get drinks on the street for 25 cents. You can get a completely full meal for like $2, $1.50. Yesterday, I did a full video on how much $5 can get you here in El Salvador, and let me tell you, it's a lot. So, even though everything is charged in US dollars, it's really, really affordable, and it also makes conversions really easy. So if you're coming from the United States, don't worry about changing money, because the money here is exactly the same as it is back home. All right, first stop of the day. It's packed, it's busy. I almost got run over by a car, but this is what life is like here in San Salvador. This right here is the main municipal market of San Salvador. Okay, this is probably one of the best things to see here in San Salvador. This market is massive. If you actually look at it on the map, it takes up like this entire huge block that's really the size of like 2 blocks combined together. And there's like 10, 11, 15 different buildings, each selling their own thing. You've got a building for meat, you've got a building for vegetables, you've got a building for fruits, you've got a building for seafood, you've got a building for makeup. It's ridiculous how big this market is and how divided it is. It's actually pretty organized, but there's just so much going on. It's so hectic. It's insane to imagine. It's so big. In fact, they have a church inside the market. I've never seen a church inside a market, but this market is just massive. It is humongous. It's pretty old. It's been around for a long time. It's just incredible to me how big and how hectic this market is. And it's like a Tuesday morning. Everybody's just running around. Ladies carrying chickens bumping into you. They do not care. They are like, they really do not care what they do to you. But it's just amazing how this market functions. Well, we are finally out of the market. I've got to say, that is a very big market. I think that's actually one of the biggest markets I've seen in all of, you know, Latin America. It's massive, and it's got like multiple, I think it's got like 3 floors, 3 floors. There's like 10, 20 different buildings. You're gonna get lost in it. Like that's just a fact. You will get lost in the market. It's still a fairly organized market. They've got different regions with like fruits and vegetables and meat and seafoods, eateries and all of that. They've got them all in the different areas, but still really, really incredible. Great way to see what the local life is like here in El Salvador. Just a couple of walks down from the main market here in San Salvador is the Civic Square of San Salvador. Now the Civic Square is, as the name suggests, it's a civic square. It's where a lot of civic participation takes place. Right behind me is the National Palace of San Salvador. It's usually open to the public, but for some reason today it's closed. I think they're undergoing some renovations and stuff. Over there is the Metropolitan Cathedral of San Salvador, which you can see right there. It's absolutely stunning. I'll tell you guys more about the history of that later. Look at this place. It's really, really beautiful. The cops are really nice. They're handing these out. Oh man, I am loving San Salvador, but let's go ahead and go and check out the main Metropolitan Cathedral of San Salvador first. That has got to be actually one of the most beautiful churches I've seen here in Central America. It's stunning on the inside. The stained glass is incredible. You've got these huge pillars at the very end. It's so tall, it's so grand. It's really, really stunning. And the interesting thing is that there is a big portrait at the front of the church of a guy named Oscar Romero. His crypt, where he's buried, is right here around the corner, so I'll show you guys that first, and then I'll explain why he's so important here in San Salvador. To understand why Oscar Romero is so important to San Salvador and El Salvador in general, you have to understand the politics of this country back in the 80s and the 90s when there was a civil war going on between the guerrillas on the left side and the military on the right side. Now, these two forces were fighting all the time and it was really, really bad. In fact, the guerrillas would use the tower at the very front of the church, that one right behind me, all the way up there. They would use that to broadcast a lot of their messages all across the city. So the churches even became very much politicized and turned basically into a war zone as the guerrillas and the military were fighting together. Now, what this guy did, Oscar Romero, is that he sent a letter to both parties and asking them in the name of God to come together and stop fighting and work something out and just be peaceful for once, to give the country finally some peace. And well, he got murdered for it. They literally came into the church, shot him, and that's how he passed away. But he's very important here in El Salvador, and because of his contributions, because of his sacrifice, the people from the Vatican actually came over and canonized him. So he's actually a saint now. It's Saint Oscar Romero. And what he's done for this country is amazing. And even though he sacrificed his life for it, today you see El Salvador is a much more peaceful country. The people here are optimistic. They have a young, new president that's doing great things for the country. It's really, really heartwarming to see how far this country has come. And despite the problems with gang violence and everything, it's still a really, really beautiful country that has so much potential thanks to people like Oscar Romero who have laid down their lives to help move the country forward. But the church is amazing. It's beautiful on the inside, and there's just so much history. I mean, this church is the site of the Civil War as we knew it back in the 80s in El Salvador. Those towers were used by the guerrillas. It's incredible how far this country has progressed in just a couple of decades, and I'm excited to see how much farther this country can move forward. Right behind this church is this sort of main square. There's a statue inside, but the main thing to see here is this building right here, which is the National Theater of El Salvador. Unfortunately, they're not allowing anyone to go in, which kind of makes sense. Most of the theaters that I've been to don't really allow anyone. It looks pretty cool. It looks like there's some chandeliers inside, but I'm not allowed to enter. But usually I think if you book like a ticket and you're here to watch a show, like there's one on the 12th of September, you'll be able to go in and see what's inside. But if you're not going for an actual show, I highly doubt they're gonna let you in. But it's a really, really nice place. You can see down there on the street, you've got some really nice like grass sort of things growing on the metal beams or something. I don't really know how to describe it, but it's really, really nice, really, really clean. The main sort of plaza you can see right behind me is really, really nice as well. And the thing is, there's so much security presence. There's 2 soldiers back there, there's 2 cops over there. It's just really, really safe in general just to walk around the center of San Salvador. I feel safe. I know that if I ever have trouble, there are cops everywhere, there are soldiers everywhere that I can count on. So it's a really, really nice city so far. But the National Theater, I'm sure it's been around for a very long time. It's got that old architecture and it's all yellow in color. Really, really beautiful. Unfortunately, we can't go inside, so we're gonna head on to the next stop. I think this spot right here is an incredible contrast of what El Salvador is. On this side, you've got the National Theater there. It's really, really nice and clean. You've got a subway, coffee shops, ice cream parlor, super developed, super nice. There's a bakery over there, there's a pharmacy. Really, really nice and clean. And then on the opposite side right behind me, you've got just a bunch of street carts, umbrellas, shoes, horchata, whatever you want. It's sold down there. So that contrast is kind of incredible, but that's what El Salvador is all about. That mix of the modern and the old, the traditional and the development. It's all mixed together in this city, and I love how it's just sort of merged. And this point right here, this point is like the merging point between these two areas. Just one block down from the National Theater is this park right here. This is Liberty Park here in San Salvador. Why is it called Liberty Park? There is a structure erected right at the center of the park that's dedicated to what happened on the 5th of November, 1811. That's when the independence movement started here in El Salvador. That's the first shout for independence here in the city of San Salvador. And this building was erected at the centennial, so 100 years later in 1911, to commemorate what happened back in 1811. It's the Park of Liberty. It's supposed to be the freedom of El Salvador. And today it's a really quiet area. You can see everybody around me is just sort of sitting down, chilling out. Some people are eating ice cream. Some people are taking a snack. Others are taking a stroll. It's just another nice park to walk around. I have to say, San Salvador has a lot of really, really nice parks. So yeah, it's an absolutely amazing place to be. But this tower right here, this structure erected for the independence, the liberty of San Salvador, it's a great place to be. Could not ask for anything better. Now, we're obviously going to be seeing a lot of churches today because El Salvador is a Catholic country, and it's also like San Salvador is the capital of El Salvador. But this church right here, this is a really interesting church. It's supposed to be an absolutely stunning church. Let's go inside and check it out. This is the Church of El Rosario.
Gracias.
This right here is probably one of the most unique and one of the most beautiful churches I've ever seen. You can see that it's in this like sort of arch shape that goes up all the way until it gets to the other side, which is absolutely amazing. Now, when the architect actually suggested and brought up this architecture plan to the people in charge of the Catholic Church here in El Salvador, it got rejected. But at the end of the day, it was finally built, and it's amazing. The original church was built in the 1500s, but as you know, El Salvador suffers from many, many earthquakes, so it had to be rebuilt over and over again. I think it was rebuilt once in the 1800s, another time in the 1900s, and then another time in like the 1960s, 1970s, which is the current church that stands. But it is incredible how beautiful this place is. It's on an east and west axis, which means that when the sun rises, it'll rise from that side all the way, and then it'll set on this side right behind us. And in the middle of all this is that thing right there, which is the eye of God overlooking the church, symbolizing, you know, the holy nature of this place and how God is watching whatever happens in his house, which is just absolutely incredible with the symbolism. Now it's time to mix in a little bit of modern political history into this church. Now, in the 70s, there was a big civil war going on, and was fought between the guerrillas, which were on the left, and the military, which was on the right. Now, there was an election that occurred during this time, and basically the guerrillas were winning by far. And then there was an electrical power outage. Suddenly, the military, when the electricity came back, the military was leading in the votes. So there was this massive protest at Liberty Square, which is the one that's right next to this church, the one we were at earlier, that commemorates the independence or the start of independence for San Salvador and the country as well. Now the military started firing guns on people, and because of that, the crowds that were in the square on the opposite side of the church came into the church to seek refuge. But while they were doing that, a couple of people died, but there was one stray bullet, and that bullet was launched from the square on that side of the church and hit specifically this little square right here. You can see to this very day the cracks in the glass. They haven't done anything to repair it. They've left it the way it is. And it's so specific. It's a really, really small square actually. If you're shooting it from the other side of the park, all the way here, that's a really far distance. And to be that accurate to hit that, I mean, I don't think he was aiming for that. I think he was aiming for one of the people. But it's incredible how they've managed to preserve that here at the church, a memento, a sad memento from the Civil War period of El Salvador. It's incredible that they've managed to preserve that and kept that as a memory of a very dark time in this country's history. That has got to be one of the most beautiful churches ever. The stained glass, that rainbow, the symbolism is incredible, and there's no other church like it. It's so unique, that sort of arch shape. It's not your typical church, to be honest, but it's beautiful in its own way. Like I said, the architect got rejected by the Salvadorian Catholics when he first suggested it, but it's so unique, it's so crazy, and I'm so happy they actually allowed him to build it because it is absolutely stunning. Now the next church is a little bit farther away from the center, but it's like maybe 6-7 blocks away. This church is a really unique church because a big part of it isn't actually even made here in El Salvador. This right here is the Basilica of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. What I'm loving about the churches here in San Salvador is that each church has its own character. Like the Rosario that we saw earlier, so many colors. This one is so unique, it's so different. Now if you're thinking, this church kind of looks like a Northern European church, you're not crazy, because this church right here, I mentioned earlier, was not made in San Salvador. Actually, it was made in Belgium. The whole facade, all the towers, which you can see all the way up there, that was all made in Belgium. And you can tell it kind of doesn't look like a Catholic Salvadorian church. It's pretty different, especially from the Metropolitan Cathedral that's near to the center in San Salvador. So it's definitely different, and you can tell from the way it looks and everything that it was produced somewhere else. But Belgium is not the only country where parts of this church were produced. The tiles in this church were produced in Italy, and the wood was brought from Indonesia. So this is kind of like an international church in a way, and El Salvador had such good relations with these countries because of its coffee exportation that all these countries helped to build this church here. Now, one of the most crazy parts about this church is that usually when you see a church, it's made of concrete or made of brick or something like that. But this church, just listen to this. It's made of metal sheets. This church is literally just made of like aluminum metal. I don't know if it's aluminum, but it's metal sheets. I've never seen a church made of metal like this. It's like, a lot of those houses, you have those metal tops, those aluminum metal tops that just sort of cover it, especially in like the jungles and the farmlands. That material is the same material that they're using to build the church here, which is just incredible. Like, why would you build a church like that using this sort of material? But it's crazy to me how they've managed to build it. The inside is beautiful, those huge dark wooden beams, and it's actually really dark inside. Like I said, very Northern European style because of that Belgian influence. This church was produced there, but really, really beautiful. Alright, continuing to move west from the center of San Salvador, we've come to a really nice neighborhood actually in the city. This is Cuscatlan. So you guys have probably heard me mention many times about the Civil War here in El Salvador and how that happened in the 70s and 80s. But this wall right here is dedicated to all the people who were murdered in those wars innocently, civilians who were killed in the massacres that took place. They put the year, the locations, and some of the names of the people that were massacred. It's sort of a memorial for those who suffered because of the Civil War, and it's incredible that they've actually managed to document all those names. There's like, they say over like 30,000 names that are inscribed on the wall right here. It goes on pretty far down, like you can see how far it goes, but it's sort of a protected cultural site and a historical site here in El Salvador for the people to always remember the suffering that they went through from the Civil War and to never repeat it again. Well guys, we're on one of the walkway paths that are elevated so you get a pretty good view of the entire park. Oh, something really cool. A rainbow actually just appeared in the sky here at the park. But I'm gonna be ending the video here because we're gonna just be heading back to the center. The sun is setting. We've got some dark clouds coming in that looks like it's about to rain. And yeah, it's kind of the end of the day already. But San Salvador, what an amazing city. I know that before I came here, I was actually quite skeptical. I didn't really know what there was to see. I know people had told me there's, you know, a danger element at least here in San Salvador. That is one of the most dangerous cities in the world with really bad homicide rates. But after I've come here, and I think you, as you can see in this video, San Salvador specifically is a city that is really nicely developed. There are areas of San Salvador, especially in the center, that are just like first world. You could compare it to any other city in the United States or Europe. And what I like is that they've also still managed to preserve some of the older Salvadorian elements. The street carts on the street, you know, just selling clothes and selling food. I love that. I think that's beautiful. And I think that that balance is, they've got it right here. Anyways, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video, and I hope you found it helpful if you're thinking of coming to San Salvador. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more food and travel videos. We've got more videos coming here from El Salvador, but I'm so excited to show you more of this country. It's beautiful, it's developed, it's nice, and it's safe. So make sure to come here, make sure to subscribe to this channel, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye guys.